Welcome to part three, the last one in this mini series. If you're just joining us, go back and catch parts one and two first.
In the first two, we covered what perimenopause actually is and the full range of symptoms, including the ones nobody warns you about.
And today we're talking about the research, the brain science, why so many women get dismissed or misdiagnosed, and what's actually helped.
Let's wrap this up properly.
I would like to, if it's okay, just pivot a little bit
Mm.
and speak about kind of the research side of things.
Yeah.
Now we became aware in all of our kind of research, and I think you became aware during the research that you've been doing for your own situation about Dr. Lisa Mosconi from Weill Cornell,
Yeah.
who's done great work on this. So you want to explain to everybody who she is?
She is Dr. Lisa Mosconi. I have a massive girl crush on because she's amazing. And please, please put her into Google and jump on any podcast that she has been on because she talks about perimenopause. And actually, what I will say, because Morgan and I want to get guests on eventually, I don't know if we would ever be able to secure a Dr. Lisa Mosconi, but it would be great to do a perimenopause episode with a specialist, wouldn't it? Because just the wealth of knowledge that they carry and what they could share with the audience would be amazing. But she's an incredible neuroscientist and she works for the Women's Brain Initiative. There's something that she has a centralized idea and it's called the 3Ps. So what she has found in research, and I'll say them, she's leading it, but there'll be a group of very clever researchers and scientists working alongside her, is they found that the female brain remodels itself 3 times in the lifetime. It's at puberty, pregnancy, and perimenopause. Men get one rewiring at puberty. And
No shock,
sorry.
no shocks there.
Yeah, I know. It's like I think you get a far easier ride than you realize, quite frankly, not to be flippant, but
I think we get rewired at puberty and we just stay there. That's where
I think you do, and I also think it's unfair. But yeah. So men rewire the once, women rewire 3 times, and it's absolutely phenomenal that your brain has the capacity to do this at all. So the facts around this and her findings are that estrogen helps run the brain's fuel supply. And when it falls, the brain's energy system is thrown out of sync, which is where the fog, heat, mood, sleep changes, etc. Exists. That's taken from the Menopause Brain that was written by Lisa Mosconi. She's also found that imaging shows the changes across the transition are very real but largely temporary. And so the brain reaches a new equilibrium. And what she found was really amazing. I think my interpretation of this, she frames it as you emerge with a better brain, which I love. So we have something to look forward to, ladies. We really do. Good things are coming. But my interpretation of that, because I'm finding myself go through this as well, is I think your hormones, your brain is there to keep you alive and in one piece, isn't it? It's like the motherboard. And all it does is work over time to say, got to keep this thing alive. So when your hormones are fluctuating and 1 minute you're up and the next minute you're down, your brain very quickly has to recalibrate and go, right, okay, what don't we need? What are we just taking off the table? And what are we focusing on? Because this is taking up a lot of time, fuel, and energy. And one of the things that we know the brain does is it starts to reorganize boundaries. And so you start, when you hear back in the day, because I'm sure you will have grown up hearing this as well, as teenagers, you would have heard about women, she's difficult, she's miserable, she's probably going through the change. That's her brain just going, you know what? I'm not going to put up with your shit anymore. I've got too much else going on. And there's just some shit we're going to park. Okay. And we don't care if you like it or not. So they found that the brain, perimenopausal women, their empathy grows, but it's better targeted. So rather than scattergun approach with our empathy, and we're nurturing and loving and kind to everyone, we're like, sorry, mum, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, you come here because you need my attention. Boundary setting.
Wow. Wow.
Apologize for the bombs, but that's kind of where you find yourself at, because your brain's like, if we don't do this, we're going to run out of steam. And if we run out of steam, we're going to keel over and die. And my job's to try and keep you alive.
Right.
So there's this new kind of confidence that emerges, um, that we can manage better. And what I love about that as I start to step into this space is I think we can hold this confidence in a way that's graceful and elegant. Because when you're pushing boundaries as a teenager, it can come across as abrasive, brashy, a bit. But I think as an older woman, you can kind of just go, "Yeah, I got the room to deal with this."
Mhm.
And you've got age on your side, so you kind of the approach to it is slower, steadier, sturdier. And I think if this is what's happening to our brains as it rewires, wonderful.
Yeah. I do think though that it kind of relies upon, I mean, as we heard from some of our listeners' experiences, although you may try to approach it in a certain manner, it can get frustrating
Of
um,
course.
when you're trying to
Absolutely.
get somebody just to listen to you. Um, what I would point out as well is that obviously everybody's experience is not typical.
Yeah,
There are, I'm
exactly.
sure, really great experiences in the medical field with this kind of diagnoses and the treatment of your symptoms. Um,
Yeah.
but I would like to, I think we would be remiss as well if we didn't mention the inequity in women's healthcare.
Yes.
Was
Yeah.
because, as you alluded to earlier, a lot of the research is done with and aimed towards white women, to be frank,
Yeah.
whereas people from other ethnicities do experience this a lot differently. We did touch upon it earlier, but Black and Hispanic women, in particular, they tend to reach menopause a
Mm.
lot earlier than white, Chinese, and Japanese women,
Yeah.
about
Mm.
1.2 years earlier, apparently, once selection bias is corrected. Black women also tend to experience hot flashes or hot flushes for a median period of about 10 years versus around 7.5 years overall. And
That's a big gap.
it's a big gap. And in a US study of over 200,000 women, Black women were 26% less likely to be prescribed HRT.
Yeah. We've got to be
Really
asking why.
figures. Yeah.
Mm.
So, and
Mm.
it does come down to, I know, particularly in the US, this study is a US study,
Yeah.
and it does literally boil down to the fact that Black women are not listened to when it comes
Yeah.
to medical dealings. And,
Yes. Yeah.
you
Absolutely.
know,
Absolutely.
so,
I mean, that they also say we picked something up from the Menopause Society, and this is in 2023, that white women with a psychiatric condition were 40% more likely to be prescribed hormones than black women with the same condition. And the
right.
same has gone for pain relief, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So, we've heard the stories, and this deviates slightly, but it's on the same path. Labor and, going to see your OBGYN, obstetrics, gynecology, healthcare for Black women and brown women are very, very different.
Yes.
From not being told what the sex of your baby is, there was that going on here in the UK for a while, for
Mhm.
a number of reasons, to not being given pain meds at the
Well,
same.
and I would say as well, just to kind of pivot a little bit too on that same subject, but
Mm,
I don't you or anybody listening is a fan of the show The Pit, but they had a wonderful episode where it really highlighted Black women not being listened to when it comes to pain management, particularly when it comes to sickle cell and
yeah,
the suffering of
yeah,
sickle cell, and not being
yeah,
believed that, the pain is what it is. I need this pain management immediately. And it was
mm,
only luckily this person had an advocate in a doctor who understood this
yeah,
illness,
yeah,
but it is something that does literally happen every day. women
Yes.
are
Yeah.
believed
And
in.
it is shocking, isn't it? Because it makes you wonder then how that impacts mortality rates.
Absolutely.
When I mentioned the chronic anemia and left untreated, that can lead to heart attacks and strokes. It makes you wonder how many women have had a poor quality of life in older life as a result because it's not been treated. And if you were to break that down again into race, what those numbers look like, and women whose lives have ended prematurely because they'll say on the death certificate, oh, massive stroke. But how did that happen? And then
Yeah.
again, if we break that down into race and culture, what does that look like? And it's I f eh the Pit, I saw that episode, and that's a relatively new episode, which
Yeah.
suggests it's still very much an issue, and it is an issue. It's not a risk, it's an issue, it's happening, it's real in
Yeah.
this day and age.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I did want to, as well, just while we're on this topic,
Yeah.
outline some findings from the SWAN
Yeah,
study,
please
which is
do.
something
Yeah, yeah.
mentioned a lot during this episode, just in relation to the inequity in women's healthcare and the kind
Mm,
of stuff that women of other ethnicities have to deal with when it comes to
yeah.
healthcare in general, but particularly the SWAN study deals with the perimenopause and menopause side of things for women. So, we've said Black and Hispanic women tend to reach menopause earlier, and it had different experiences with the symptoms. And this is down to a number of reasons. So we have, very briefly, we have the weathering hypothesis. So chronic toxic stress, ongoing exposure to structural racism, discrimination, and economic instability trigger a high level of daily
Yeah.
stress. This then leads to what's called a cortisol overload. So cortisol being what's
Yeah.
released when you're under stress. Your
Mhm.
cortisol in elevated along with your adrenaline accelerates your
Yeah.
cellular aging. So the premature aging, which is known as weathering, the chronic wear and tear forces the reproductive system to age and shut down prematurely.
Oh,
There is also, and I assume it's the same in the UK, I'm not sure, but I do know a lot of friends of mine who have had to deal with uterine fibroids. It is a very, very big
yeah,
uh,
it's very common
issue
here as well.
in
Mm.
the African American community.
Yep.
As Black women do face a significantly higher biological risk of developing severe uterine fibroids.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
fibroids are often treated with surgery, these women then have to undergo hysterectomies and oophorectomies at much
Mm.
higher rates and at
Yeah.
much younger ages.
They
Um,
they will often, depending on the size of fibroids here, they'll leave them alone until it gets
mm,
to a point where they feel it's, so large that they need to have them removed, and it does, you're right, it often ends up being a partial hysterectomy or a hysterectomy because of
yeah,
where it is, they've got no choice. But surely there should be a stage in between. If they leave it for a while, because most women are wandering around with a fibroid and they're probably 2 millimeters in size, if that. But surely there's a point where they leave them, but they check them so that they can be treated before having to remove your womb. Sure,
yeah.
surely,
You, you
if
would hope so, but again,
it
because
appear not, because you're going from knowing you have them to then having your womb removed, which strikes me as
absolutely,
crazy. Why isn't that being
absolutely.
monitored?
Exactly. And as I say, women's health research is just so it's beginning to get so far behind now,
Yeah.
just because the government are pulling the funding.
Mm,
Um, so there are other things that kind of feed into this. There are environmental toxins,
mm,
socioeconomic and environmental factors, lifestyle inequities, as well as healthcare access gaps. As you know here,
yeah.
healthcare is pretty much all paid. So there is a lack of kind of access to be able to deal with what could be perhaps minor
Mm,
symptoms that can lead into being something bigger that lead
yeah,
to having to have early hysterectomies and oophorectomies, which then put a woman into menopause
yeah,
uh, and
yeah.
postmenopause. So just did want to highlight that because I feel it's very important. And that's why I
Yeah,
feel, particularly if you're from a minority, it's good to have information at hand so that you're able to advocate for yourself from a much stronger
absolutely.
position.
I think the conversations need to be had more broadly, seek out groups, and also, social media has its uses where it can be an incredible source of information. And look for female doctors. There's a fabulous doctor over here, Nigat Arif. She's fabulous. South Asian diaspora. I don't know where from, so apologies in advance. But she's a massive advocate, and she's wonderful because she can speak to that community where it's often taboo. And so, it's really important because even if we may not realize it, and a professional's a professional, bottom line. I feel I need to say that, right? But you might not be thinking it, but you are going to resonate more if you've got a brown or black doctor, female, talking about perimenopause, menopause, the care, understanding you culturally and realizing that for many women it is really taboo and it's not a conversation that's broadly spoken about, not even necessarily within your own circles, or it's hush hush speak with, this, or you hear the aunties speaking about it, talking about it, and you're listening in. So it's really important for communities to be informed so they can make these decisions and have some autonomy over their
Absolutely.
bodies and say, we want HRT, or we want to at least know where we stand before we make any decisions. And that doesn't seem to be, it's there now. We got to look for it. You kind of got to look for it.
Absolutely. And I do not mean for this to become political, but this is why it's so important that the changes that the government make when it comes to healthcare, but not only that, when it comes to immigration,
Mm,
refusing visas for people from other countries that become doctors here, for getting rid of programs like a DEI. You
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
these are programs that help
Yeah.
people from various backgrounds
Absolutely.
so they can become doctors, so that they
Yeah.
can advocate for their patients who are
Yeah.
from ethnicities other than.
No,
So
you're
I just,
absolutely right. And I think even if you're born and raised in a country, if your parents are born and raised from a different country. So I'm born and raised in the UK, but you have a strong cultural attachment to, whatever your cultural heritage is because your parents aren't from this country. So, the things that might be more normal for some circles of my friends to talk about wouldn't have been for me necessarily, or it was treated differently. Either, it might be dismissed or it was joked about but wasn't taken very seriously. And so I think the key thing is conversation, have the conversation, dispel the myths, break and make it the norm to have the conversation about, because it's always, you can remember it as girls at school when you were like, oh my God, and you wanted to put your hand up to say, I need a bathroom break. And they were really quite, do you remember? It's like you go during break time, you're like, but I really need to go now. And, the horror if you had to say why, and, and your kids as well. So you treat things very differently. But I think, we've taken that into the workplace. If a woman sat there in the office and, the temperatures are down and she's freezing, or the aircon has gone up and she's cold and she needs it to go up because her thermostat is breaking and under pressure, she needs to
yeah,
be able to say, help.
yeah,
This landscape hasn't been built for us, and it
yeah,
hasn't. We need
yeah,
cool rooms in workplaces, by the way, for women. We need breakout rooms. Do you remember you used to have smoking rooms in offices?
yeah,
We need
right.
now cool rooms, refrigerator rooms for women to go and sit in and go, oh my God, I can breathe.
Like reverse saunas, yeah. Um,
Exactly, reverse sauna.
and I mean, that's what I will say is that this is why it's so very important to keep this conversation open. I think it's really
Yeah.
important for all women. I mean, I know you don't want to speak about your personal business per se, you know what I mean? But just
Mm,
keep these conversations open in your
yeah.
friend groups, within your
Yeah.
families.
We all have
Uh,
someone we can speak to, even if it's one person.
and also, don't be shy to share it with the men in your life,
Yes,
because I think
please.
this brings about understanding.
Mm,
Uh, and it helps. And also, it helps to raise your boys to know this stuff.
yeah.
I grew
Yeah.
up in a house full of women, but I really am clueless about this,
Really.
because I'm sure there can be a way that a guy is able to, at least if he has some understanding, it can help
Mm.
you someday.
Yes.
Not going to
Yeah.
be y- annoying you by thinking that you're being
Yes.
annoying because you're putting it
Yeah.
on, or it's not a
Yes.
real thing, or,
Yeah. Yeah.
if we know that this is what it is, then we know that we can respond in a much more helpful manner, perhaps.
It's education, isn't it? It's having that education so you understand, you know, what it is, why it's happening.
Yeah,
Research is starting to come forward. It's getting better. We've got the likes of the amazing Dr. Mosconi
yeah,
doing the Lord's work. And, if this is very much a generalization, but if men really need the less emotional side and they want the hardcore black and white facts, then go and jump on a scientific research paper.
yeah,
Read up Dr. Mosconi's work, jump onto one of her podcasts and listen to it in sort of binary code, if
yeah.
that's what's gonna get the message across. Because if the other side that we've been talking about just isn't getting in there, then start down the other end and go in purely scientific so that you start somewhere. Because it's knowledge. And it's about not dismissing it, because I think a lot of women have told themselves that they are losing their minds.
Yeah. I mean,
They're really not.
yeah, and I think a lot of it is empathy, honestly.
Mm.
Just comes down to people having empathy for what somebody else is going through.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and that comes from understanding, and whether that be on a scientific side or just a how are you feeling
Yeah.
side, then I think that's the best thing. So, what I would like to just finish up on is
Mm.
literally, we've kind of gone through some symptoms and how to kind of advocate for yourself and how to seek treatment. But we really want to know, what can HRT do for you? How does it help?
Yeah. Well, how can, yeah. And,
Can it help?
again, how, what we've touched on is that it isn't, one size fits all. What it does for some women, it won't do for others, but generally it can relieve hot flushes, night sweats, brain fog, and sleep disruptions. And it also, this I found really interesting because this hadn't occurred to me, but it slows age related bone loss and it
Mm,
reduces the risk of fractures caused by osteoporosis. And I guess maybe it never occurred to me because I don't know of any instances of that within my family or a lot of people around me. And again, that might be cultural. I don't know if osteoporosis affects more cultures than others.
mhm,
But coming from a family of Indian heritage who, for the last few generations, were born and raised in the Caribbean, I've never heard of that. So that was something when I learned, I thought, gosh, that's amazing. Estrogen protects your blood vessels. It lowers the mortality rates and cardiovascular risks. And women who start HRT after 60 or more than 10 years after menopause face higher risk of stroke, blood clot, and heart disease. And can I also just say that it has been since long dispelled the myth about the increase in breast cancer rates. Now, I think it's really important that everyone knows that if there is a hereditary form of cancer, breast cancers or gynecological cancers, then it might affect your ability to go on HRT. But for a long period, and I think this might go back to the 90s potentially, correct me if I'm
mm,
wrong, but there
mhm,
was a load of news. It was all over the papers. It causes breast cancer and you're going to die if you take it. And that's not true. So it's again what we've said all the way through this episode. Please speak to your doctor because every woman's individual and you may well seriously benefit from being on HRT. Oral pills carry more risk than gels and patches that avoid the liver. Also, to that, can I say I had a wonderful conversation with my menopause doctor the other day, and she said to me that regarding testosterone, there's two things. Regarding testosterone, Androfem, which is coming out, I think it was developed in Australia. It's coming out in the UK later this year. I believe it's only available to women in menopause, which again, it's like, what the hell? For the love of Christ. You can buy it privately, so then it doesn't matter where you are on this lovely roller coaster. But on the NHS, I believe it's only available to women on menopause. I was talking to her about it, and she said, it's the same as the gel you've been given over the counter, which has been designed for men. I mean aesthetically. It's called Testigel. She said it's exactly the same. The testosterone that you produce and the testosterone that a man produces is the same thing. It's just in less quantities. Androfem has been marketed to women. She said it looks prettier. And you and I had a look, didn't we? It's in a very
Yes, we
cute
did.
lovely bottle and it comes in. And she said the only difference is the pump is designed to give you the exact amount that you need. Whereas the plain old ugly Testigel bottle, because we have to take a less amount, it's been designed for men to take. So one pump would be, I'd have full blown beard probably if I was taking. She said they said you've got to take half a pea size or something ridiculous like that. And she said to me, save yourself a couple of £100 if you think you can figure out what half pea is. Continue with the Testigel. You don't need Androfem.
Wow.
Androfem's also, it's more of a cream. She said it's more pleasant to apply, and so it's been designed to be aesthetically pleasing to women. But please don't go and blow a load of money on it when you can get Testigel for £9.90 on prescription.
Yeah.
But I digress. But it kind of fits into this bracket, so I wanted to
Yeah.
share that with everyone. Women who have a uterus must take progesterone alongside estrogen. Estrogen used alone increases the risk of endometrial cancers, and we touched on this earlier on. So for me, I'm on sequential combined, which means I have to take progesterone because I'm still having a menstrual cycle. And low dose topical vaginal estrogens or creams carry virtually no systemic health risks. They don't cause blood clots or cancer and can be used very safely long term. So, is HRT for everyone? No. Could it be for you? Absolutely. Please, please, please speak with your doctor about it. Don't shy away. It isn't some crazy sorcery. And all those myths from the 90s or whenever it came out have since long been debunked.
Yeah. They have indeed.
Yes.
So, closing words for us?
Yeah, wow, that was a lot. And I hope people were able to keep track because we had a lot to say, and there's so much more that we can chat about one day down the line, as I'm sure we will. But how did you, I mean, because you've always been an interested and curious friend when it comes to female health, which I thank
Yeah.
you for, and I love that you're interested. But is there anything there for you that kind of jumped out and you thought, wow,
Of course. I mean, I think when we opened, what you had said was that you kind of think you're going to get to this stage in your life and it's going to be the end of your period and that's it. And
yeah,
that's the mind frame that I, as a man, come from. I just think that you're going to be happy. You're not going to have to deal with a monthly period anymore.
yeah,
You're
we
not going to
will
have
be.
any, you're not going to have any of this anymore. And it's going to be like a change in life. It's the change, right? It's going to be such a
Yeah.
positive thing for you. But understanding everything that you guys have to go through to deal with this, um,
Mm,
not only are you battling the physical and mental symptoms of
yeah.
this change, but you're then having to battle in order to get the appropriate treatment for it, or even the
Mm,
diagnoses
yeah.
and
Yeah.
for the it's really been an eye opener for me, speaking
Yeah.
from a male perspective. Hmm.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And it's interesting because when we talk about education for men and for women, I think it is such an enormous change. We talked about the brain rewiring, and I often feel that society suppresses us as women. We're taught to be nurturing and accommodating and submissive. And that may not be who you are naturally, but
Hmm.
nurturing has other ideas for you. So you sort of shoehorned into this shape that you're at a battle with. And I think what perimenopause, late perimenopause into menopause does for you is you shed all of those skins, and you're now probably, I am probably more like the person I was when I was about 12, interestingly. Just like you're kind of pushing boundaries, you kind of have your opinion and, in better control of it, I would like to say, dealing with it more gracefully at this age than you might have been at 12, 13. And I think if men had a better understanding of what women were going through and understood that brain rewiring connection, it might help them understand why I've heard things along the way where men say, I woke up one morning and it was a completely different woman. And now we know why. And this could save relationships if there was actual education behind who is this person? I've been with you for 30 or 40 years or 5 years, but even 5 years ago, you were completely different to who you are now. I think men need to go on a journey with their other halves as much as women. The less we're doing it alone, the better, I think, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But
Well, well, I think you just hit the nail on the head. And I think that is that both male and females, I think that when we get to this stage of our life, we do become the purest version of who we are
yeah, I like that.
because we have moved out of, that whole adolescent stage, the
Yep.
20s and the 30s, which is the building stage and the showing
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah.
This is who, this is who we wish we are. We're now at a
Yes.
stage where this is who we are.
This is who we are. And we've
Take it
reconciled so much over those years, haven't we? And when I say
to
reconcile, it isn't necessarily making peace with, it's just learning to let go of stuff. And you're like, I don't even need to resolve it. I'm just letting it go.
yeah,
And there's a real empowerment in that. So,
absolutely.
women, when their brain gets into this place of having been rewired and, targeted empathy as opposed to scattergun empathy, then yeah, I can see why a lot of men wake up one day and go, "Oh my God, who are you? And why are you telling me to darn my own socks?" That was really crazy. I don't know where that came from, but it's the first thing that came into my head.
We're in 1950. It's
It's
fine.
1953. Darn your own socks, damn you. Oh my God. But it has been a joy. I've
It
enjoyed
has,
this.
it
Continue to
hasn't.
share stories, people from either side of the fence. Would love to hear from you
Yeah, and
because
if
I
there's
think,
anything that we've said today that you're kind of like, I don't think so. Please let us know. Drop us a note,
absolutely,
comment, or
absolutely.
send us a
Yeah.
DM. So I would just like to let everybody listening know if there's one thing to take away from this episode, it is this: you are not losing your mind. You're
You are.
rewiring.
You are rewiring.
All right.
Absolutely.
So whether
100%.
you're so whether you're in the middle of this now or just starting to notice the shifts, you don't have to go through it unseen. Whether it's
Mm,
starting the conversation at the kitchen table, getting curious with your doctor, or just being kinder to yourself on the days the fog feels a little bigger, you're allowed to ask for help. You're allowed to have a better experience.
mhm.
We're all about community. Please feel free to share your thoughts and feelings in the comments and
Yep, please.
even chat amongst yourselves. Get to know one another. We'd love it. Thank you so much for listening. We hope this made you feel a little less alone today. And if you know someone you feel could benefit from hearing what we've had to share today, please, please, please share the episode and stay tuned as we explore the many facets of this life stage down the road. This isn't just going to be a one and done. We are going to
Nope,
expand on this. There's
we
so many
will.
walking paths that come off of this.
It's a lot.
And there is a male side to it too. So we will at some stage cover that as well. So
Exactly right. Absolutely, we
yes,
will. That's exciting stuff. And also, we're all up for the positive side, right?
absolutely.
You don't want to hear all the bad stories, and setting people up for thinking, "Is this all I've got to come?" It's not. There's plenty of good that happens.
That's exactly it. And that's why we're here. So
Thank you,
thank you
love.
so much for joining us. And we will see you next time. I've been
See you
Morgan.
soon. And I've been Sass. I'll speak to you soon, love.
See you soon. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye. And that's the series. 3 parts. Way too many personal stories, but hopefully some real answers in there too.
If this helped you, send it to a friend who needs to hear it. Or honestly, send it to your doctor.
Send it to your doctor. See you next week.
See you next week.
Well Hello was hosted by Morgan and Sass, produced by Morgan Taylor and Sass Allard. Please like, subscribe, rate and review us. We are available on Apple, Spotify, Amazon and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. And remember, the most interesting conversations begin with, well, hello.